Merchants of Truth, The Business of News, and the Fight for Facts. By Jill Abramson. Read by January Lavoy. In memory of my friend Danny Pearl and the other great reporters who lost their lives digging for the truth. Prologue. The party had a distinct fin de siècle air. On a wintry night in early 2016, the battered lions of journalism gathered at the Newseum in Washington, D.C., for a party to toast the 100th anniversary of the Pulitzer Prizes. These editors and reporters had spent their careers at newspapers such as the New York Times, which had won 117 of the coveted awards, the most of any news organization. Scattered throughout the room were representatives of the Washington Post, which had won 47, the second most. Their stories over the years had chronicled Watergate, the Pentagon Papers, war zones, terrorism, financial scandal, poverty, political corruption, civil rights, China, Russia, and on and on. The first rough draft of history, popularized by Phil Graham, scion of the family that owned the Post, had become a self-congratulatory cliché, but for this body of journalism's most honored work, it was true. Arthur Ox Sulzberger, Jr., the Times' publisher since 1992, took immense pride in the announcement of the Pulitzers each spring, just as his father had. The Times almost always had someone on the Pulitzer board that picked the winners. For nearly a decade, the paper's emissary was Tom Friedman, the Times' influential foreign affairs columnist and a 3-time prize winner. After the board made its decisions, Friedman would call the publisher to leak the results the Friday before they were announced. Seldom did he have anything but good news. Almost every year, the boyish-faced Sulzberger added at least one framed picture of a winner to the corridor below his office. Most of the other guests knew that Sulzberger, 64, hoped to hand over the reins to his son, Arthur Gregg, as Arthur's father, Punch Sulzberger, had done for him. Absent from the crowd of luminaries was the Washington Post's Donald Graham, the self-effacing, beloved company chairman who had executed a changing of the guard 3 years before. Despairing that the paper's quality couldn't survive deep staff cuts and vanishing advertising revenue, he sold the newspaper his family had owned since 1933 to a tech billionaire, Amazon's Jeff Bezos. The Post's sleek new offices were no longer festooned with the famous front page "Nixon resigns" from Watergate days. They were dominated by flat screens displaying real-time traffic statistics on how many readers were looking at each story. Prominent was a Bezos mantra in blue and white: "What's dangerous is not to evolve." Also missing was the younger guard, the founders of the digital media companies that had used Facebook and Google to build giant audiences of younger readers and viewers. Though very few had won Pulitzers for their news coverage, companies such as BuzzFeed and Vice Media were giving the old guard serious competition and heartburn. The party celebrated journalism's golden age, but the celebrants were living through journalism's age of anxiety. All of them knew a colleague who had taken a buyout or been laid off. The newspaper industry had shed $1.3 billion worth of editors' and reporters' jobs in the past decade, some 60% of its workforce since 2000. Some of the newspapers that won the prizes had gone out of business, more than 300 altogether, or were shadows of what they'd been. There had been repeated assurances that more could be done with less. Even the newcomers, despite their bloated valuations, were hard-pressed to show profits. Global news gathering, meanwhile, remained monstrously expensive. The kind of investigative stories that won Pulitzers took months to report, took still more time to edit and make legally bulletproof, and were ever more costly. Editors had to safeguard accuracy and fairness. If a big story broke and they needed to scramble helicopters or flood the zone with reporters, they couldn't agonize over budgets. What was being threatened were the very qualities these prizes were meant to recognize. What was at risk was far bigger than just one industry. It was truth and freedom in a democratic society, an informed citizenry.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?